So I'm going to title this one, Why is Your Pastor Fat? And I'm going to pick on your pastor just because he's supposed to be church leadership. And yeah. But first, I think it's time we let Norman out. I think he's getting antsy. And we're back. So, as I started walking out in the desert, I started thinking about this because a few years ago I was watching that pastor in Tennessee for the course of maybe a couple of years, and he was overweight. Now, I didn't initially care about that at all. I really noticed it when, as a church, they did a 21-day fast, and I saw no discernible difference in his weight, so I don't know what it was that he decided to fast, if he did anything at all. And then I noticed that over the course of listening to him, that for somebody with a master's degree in theology, he wasn't very knowledgeable. And I sent emails. Some of them were ignored. Some of them they would respond, but they really didn't understand how to answer me. And I really understood that they don't really know much. It's just very much a lukewarm church. Just show up and bring us 10, well, actually, they want more than 10% of your money. Because they're in debt, and they're like, okay, help us get out of debt too. So I started thinking about this as I'm walking in the desert, and because Yeshua was accused of being a glutton and a wine bibber. Now, I'm fairly confident that he was not overweight, especially with a 40-day fast starting his ministry off. In a time when people actually did manual labor. They didn't have these computer things and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm confident that it wasn't an outward appearance of being overweight that the Pharisees saw. They just simply saw that he came eating and drinking. And so is the problem eating and drinking? Because now my background is non-denominational, and I hung out with my friend who was Southern Baptist with his youth group over the years. And essentially, they are the same, except the Baptists didn't really believe in spiritual gifts, whereas the non-denominational do. And then we had a lot more instruments. My friend's church only had a piano and an organ, and we had everything that they could stuff on stage. So that was the real takeaway from the two of them. And when it came to alcohol in the Southern Baptist, it was complete prohibition. When it came to non-denominational, I felt like it was more like don't ask, don't tell. But I also know that there were people that just really weren't knowledgeable in it at all. They just weren't interested to even look it up. Because I was talking with one of the pastors, and I said something about, the people were drunk when Yeshua turned water into wine, because they're like, why are you bringing us the good stuff now? Everybody's already lit. And the pastor was like, I never knew that. I didn't know. So it was also just something that wasn't talked about. Now, if it's complete prohibition when it comes to the wine bibbering, then it should be the same with the gluttony side of it. But then you say, well, that doesn't make sense because you need food for energy and for nutrients. So then it comes down to moderation. Well, when I look at a population, especially in this country, I'm not seeing a lot of moderation, especially when you look at, 60% of the population is either overweight or obese. Now I realize we got problems with our food supply, so I'm not 100% pinning it on that. But what I want to make the tie with is there is a spiritual component to it. And that might have been the problem that the Pharisees were trying to suggest when it came to Yeshua. If he's not overweight and he's eating, then what's the problem? And it comes down to spiritual. So after all, if we start to think about it, how did the fall of man occur? Eve was deceived by the use of food. Fast forward to the New Testament, and Satan's got the same trick that he's going to try on the second Adam, Yeshua. After a 40-day fast, he comes up to him and says, hey, I noticed you hadn't had anything to eat in a while, and you being God, why don't you go ahead and turn those stones into bread? So, first temptation was food. So that's the interesting part is it's not, like I see all these like the latest thing is just people making videos talking about, look, if you're watching porn, you're committing adultery. Well, adultery of the heart, yes, but the problem is why is that the go-to sin? When it came down to the fall of man, it came down to food. When it came to the second attempt to destroy man, it came down to food. So food is actually a bigger component. And so when I look at people that are overweight and they have advice for my life, I'm not going to listen to them because I'm going to simply assume that they have no self-control. After all, if they're filled with the Spirit, then they're going to show the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And so if they have no self-control when it comes to food, then they probably have no self-control when it comes to other things in their life. That's just an outward representation that they have had no self-control for quite some time, because you just don't get fat overnight. And I started noticing that food is used in worship. So it's either the lack thereof. Fasting is mentioned a lot in the Bible, and there is also food that is used for worship, such as the Passover lamb, or maybe communion. Lately, I started thinking about that, and I came across some videos of people that were formerly witches. And I'm talking the witches that are doing the crazy spiritual stuff, that acknowledge the spiritual nature of the world. Not just the ones that are doing simple little things here or there, but the ones that are actually actively trying to destroy Christians' lives. And they were talking about the use of food. See, the devil needs permission in your life before he can access you. And so they look for Christians that have allowed access, permission for them to come into their home and to watch them and to do the things that they do on the dark side of things. And one of the ways that they do that is, hey, would you like some food that they have done some sort of spell over, or whatever it is, in the way to try to destroy your life? What they want to do is make sure that you are essentially spiritually numb, that you have no discernment. Because once you're in that state, they can basically take away blessings and shift the direction of your life other than the way that God wants. And so that is very important that you don't partake of these things. And it might be why when they started to figure out if the Gentile Christians needed to follow the law and get circumcised, that the answer was basically, hey, just stay away from things that are strangled and blood and sexual immorality and things sacrificed to idols. Now, I realize Paul does make the argument that an idol is nothing, but at the same time, these people are doing that. They're basically saying, okay, let me put whatever spiritually over this food, and you, by permission, you're going to consume it. Now that food is in you. And it's not just entirely the food, but it's a gateway. Again, we go back to communion, we go back to Passover. So why wouldn't there be a spiritual significance, albeit on the negative side of things, if a witch gives you food? And that's kind of where I was getting at as far as when it comes to this time of season. What Christians in general do not understand is that there are witches actively wanting to destroy your life. And so the ways that they do that is to basically deceive you into you giving them permission to come into your home. And one of the things that they do is, hey, why don't you follow us in this pagan stuff that we do for Yule? You can call it Christmas, but as long as all the other stuff's essentially the same. Bring a tree into your house, decorate it, presents, food, a wreath. And that's where you let your guard down during the holidays, because now you're consuming food that you have no idea where it came from. Now, if you've got an active prayer life, you don't have to worry about it. But if you're more of a lukewarm Christian, this is where it's going to trip you up. And after all, if you are a lukewarm Christian, why would you bring those things into your home to begin with? And so, being that this is the darkest time of the year, this is when the witches are the most active. And that is one of the reasons that they have deceived Christians into, hey, look, why don't you participate in these festivities? After all, they're fun. And look at how harmless they are. I mean, it's just a tree. It's just a wreath. They're just candy canes. They're just presents. They're just little cakes. And so once I started realizing that there's a bigger significance when it comes to food, it's not simply just food, and it's not just simply your health. After all, you're the temple of the Holy Spirit, assuming that you have God's Spirit. And so you would want to take care of that said temple and eat things that are healthy, but also understand that there is an underlying spiritual component to it. That there's more to it, that when you see somebody that is overweight, there's more to it than just they're addicted to food. There is a serious lack of, it's basically spiritual sickness or lack of the Spirit in their life that they need to address. And when I started studying this and started hearing the testimony of witches, it just really dawned on me how much is going on in the world that most Christians haven't got a clue. And that might be why in James we're told, don't be friends of the world. I mean, he outright just comes out and calls you adulterers and adulteresses. Don't be friends with the world. If you're a friend with the world, you are an enemy to God. And see, that would be the easy way to go about it. Oh, what is the world doing right now? Oh, they're getting ready to suit up and celebrate Yule. We'll call it Christmas, but we don't care what you call it, just as long as you do it. Just as long as you allow us permission. And that's probably why there's a lot of so-called Christians out there with just weak spiritual lives that are practicing things that are just not good for them, and they have no idea, because they make excuses for it. And then I come along and I say, hey, Christmas is Yule, and my numbers go down because nobody wants to hear that. What they want to hear is, could the rapture be this Feast of Trumpets? Which I guess they've moved that out to the middle of winter, but that's we'll just leave that alone. So really want to kind of encourage you to maybe look into that. Guard what it is that you have over these holidays, because you're going to be participating in it, whether or not. And I know there's people that have followed me that they're like, I don't do Christmas, but if I was invited to a Christmas dinner or something like that, I'd probably go, because it gives me an opportunity to be like, hey, this is a pagan holiday, right? There's always somebody that I can have a conversation with, and maybe they take a minute and say, why are we doing this? Why this has nothing to do with Yeshua. Why are people saying he is the reason for the season? Especially when you realize, when you listen to these witches, or former witches, I should say, talk about the lengths that they will go to use this dark time of the year to attack Christians. And the things that they say when it comes to a Christian that fasts and has a prayer life that is really connected to God, they stay away from those people. They're scared of those people. They don't want to have anything to do with them. What they are looking for is the weak Christians that are just basically going through the motions, basically saying, oh, yes, I love Jesus. Meanwhile, their lives are being attacked and they don't know. And that is the reason why you'll see relationships fail around this time of year, because that's one of the things that they go after. My relationship failed during this time of the year. And it's because my former wife did not want to give up her precious Christmas. And being the leader, the man of the house, we had already had this conversation that, hey, look, this goes back to Nimrod, Babylon, Semiramis, Baal worship, Asherah. So no, let's not participate in it. After all, I thought we were supposed to be a godly couple, but she didn't want to have any part of that. And so when I look back at the situation that I went through with all the arrests and all the things that went on, I realized that there was a huge amount of spiritual warfare going on there. That my former wife was able to use witchcraft. She probably doesn't believe that she's a practicing witch, but she was able to use witchcraft. She was able to manipulate the law enforcement and the court system to get her way. And that's why I really strive hard against this, because it's not just a simple little, man, look at all the presents and Santa and all this neat stuff and the movies and all that. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It used to be my favorite holiday. But, I decided I'm done with it. And yeah, it cost me my marriage. It cost me my family. It cost me all that stuff. But then again, that's what we're supposed to expect as believers, is that you're going to lose things in this world, but your focus isn't on this world. Your focus is on Yeshua and where we're headed, not the things of the world now.